Britain transfers the security of Basra to the Iraqi authorities, the last province under British control in southern Iraq. Is their mission complete? Can Iraqi troops keep a lid on the growing lawlessness in Iraq's second largest city? This is Inside Story. Hello there, I'm Kamal Santamaria. Britain handed over security in Basra to Iraqi police on Sunday. It was a moment heavy in symbolism, and indeed the withdrawal from Iraq's second largest city marks another phase in Britain winding down its presence in Iraq. But what do they leave behind? Can Iraqi security forces do the job? Can they do what no one's managed to do in the region and get a grip on the city's squabbling militias? Basra has been the scene of bloody turf wars between rival Shia factions, criminals and smugglers in recent years, even though the city has avoided the sectarian warfare that's plagued the rest of Iraq. Yet whether the Iraqi police can guarantee security and stand on their own 2 feet remains the Iraqi government's greatest test. But Major General Graham Binns, who led British troops into the city back in 2003, has no questions about their abilities.
They were ready. So the Prime Minister of Iraq has decided that the province is ready. The Governor has agreed. General Mohan, who is responsible for security here, has agreed. And so we will transfer that. We wouldn't do that unless they and we thought they were ready.
Well, ordinary people on the streets of Basra had mixed reactions on the handover. This is what some of them had to say.
Handing over security responsibility in Basra to Iraqi forces is a successful step forward. It is a good move for all the Iraqis. I hope we continue to take similar positive steps forward.
Although the handover of security in Basra to the Iraqi forces is a good step, I believe it's not a timely one. The recent incidents in Basra is a living example. I personally feel the security apparatuses are still infiltrated.
Today, we are very pleased to see the security affairs handed over by the occupier British forces to the Iraqi forces. This sentiment of pleasure can be seen on all the faces you meet. I can't put it in words.
We hope to see the Iraqi security personnel shouldering the security responsibility. Simply, they are more aware of the region's characteristics. This can be easily felt by the Iraqi citizens on the street. We can see the Basris happier with security in our hands than the multinational forces.
Let's introduce our panel for today. Our guests in Doha, Colonel Alistair Campbell, former British Defence Attaché in Baghdad and currently the Director of the Royal United Services Institute in Doha. In Beirut, Faleh Abdul Jabbar, an Iraqi author and Director of the Iraq Institute for Strategic Studies. And on the line from Basra, John Wilkes, the regional spokesman for the British government in the Middle East. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Inside Story. I'm going to go to the phones first. John Wilkes, regional spokesperson from the British government. Yes or no, are the Iraqi forces ready for this?
We judge that they are ready to face the challenges of the city of Basra and the province of Basra. We wouldn't have handed over at this stage if we didn't believe that. But as your introduction made clear and as the interviews made clear, there are massive challenges here. And we're not withdrawing and we're not going to leave the Iraqis to face those challenges alone. Yes, from now on they're going to play the leading role, but we've said we're going to continue with training and equipping the Iraqi forces, and we're going to have forces strong enough here in Basra in the year ahead to help the Iraqi forces if they request it from us.
To look at it from your point of view, from the British point of view, do you see the British involvement in Basra as a success? Some would say that Britain has, in some ways, maybe even been defeated in Basra. Can you understand why some people might think that?
There's a lot that still needs to be done in Basra, and we have certainly not achieved all we wanted to achieve when we arrived in 2003. But I think for the British, it's getting the balance right between being a positive help to the Iraqi security forces, listening to their requests and their requirements, and avoiding being part of the problem, being seen as an occupying power and giving legitimacy to forces, resistance forces in Iraq. Now, we think that this repositioning goes a significant step towards getting that balance right. And we want to see this carrying on in the months and years ahead. As the Iraqis step up, we can step down and we can move more towards supporting the economics of Basra and not just the security situation, a more sort of normal relationship for a country like Britain with a country like Iraq.
As I understand it, though, there will be, I guess you could call it a small rapid response team which will remain in place should the Iraqis need them. How often do you think, or how often do you anticipate that force might be required? Because that would be the worst thing, wouldn't it, having to have the British people called up once they've supposedly left?
We've said in the 3 out of the 4 provinces that have already been handed over to the Iraqis, we've always said to them, we're there to help if you need us. And in fact, they and we have judged right that they've not had to call on us for any large-scale deployments. Now, we judge the situation, and the Iraqis judge the situation in Basra appropriate to hand over now. So although that reserve capability is there and will be there throughout the coming period, we think there's every chance that the Iraqi security forces will handle the challenges they face. And let's just look at the last 3 months since we left the city of Basra. We redeployed from the palace to the airport. There have been problems in Basra, and the Iraqi security forces have been able to handle them.
Colonel Alistair Campbell in Doha, you were in Iraq up until February, I understand. Do you think this was the right time to leave?
Well, I would say that there was no ideal moment to leave. Many argued that perhaps you should have left Basra or handed over to the province Basra to the Iraqis about this time last year. There are many others who will say, well, we need to carry on training, particularly the police force, another few years before they're ready. So there's no ideal time. But I think, on the whole, it's as good a time as any. And we should see this not so much in terms of success or failure, victory or defeat, as some people have tried to describe it, but more as simply a step in a process towards giving Iraq back to the Iraqis so they can find their own solutions to their problems. So I agree with very much what John Wilkes is saying about the process at the moment. And I'll just add that I believe that the British have trained the Iraqi army, the 10th Division, extremely well for the last 3 years, and they're fully capable. I'm not quite so sure about the police. I think the police have greater problems for all sorts of reasons, and it'll take a few years before the police are up to their task.
Can you tell us some of those reasons?
Well, I think the police are fairly unreconstructed from Saddam era, in as much as, whereas the army was disbanded, the police were not. And about 30,000 or 40,000 of the old guard were still there, and we're not able to get rid of them. I also think their whole ethos will take perhaps a generation to change. They never had quite the same respect in Iraqi society as the armed forces have. And also, as you well know, they are infiltrated by the militias. So it's quite a long time before I think the police really are capable of doing the job that the army are doing at the moment.
And we will talk more about the militias later in this programme. I'd like to go to Beirut now. Faleh Abdel-Jabbar, who is there for us. What do you think about the removal of British forces there? Is there a chance that this could actually be a calming influence on the area?
Well, it has a great symbolic value in terms of retrieval of sovereignty, and this would, soothe the fears and concerns that Iraq is under occupation, blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, the idea of pulling out and handing over sovereignty back to the Iraqis in security areas and other areas, this concept has been tied by most of the politicians with the progress achieved on building, on the front of building the Iraqi army forces and the police force. And as we know, the Iraqi army is still an infantry force. It has no air force. It has no tanks, no heavy wherewithal. And in many of the cases, the militias can outmaneuver them very easily. Second, the police force is as corrupt as any case one can imagine at all. It is in certain cases the militia in the uniform. If we add to this the sundry forces from within the Basra society and within the Iraqi context and regional-wise as well, we can see a very bleak picture. We add to this also a very important factor is the weakness of the justice system. The police would do surveillance over the society, but who would police the police? Who would monitor the police? Who would check in the police? And these are all real concerns, that crosses my mind and the minds of so many observers indeed.
Just to get another comment from you, if I could, on the actual withdrawal of the British forces. How do you think they will be remembered in the region?
Well, it depends on the Basra society has mixed feelings, as your program has amply shown. Many people think that this is a great moment of, sovereignty, re-empowerment of Iraqis, etc. But others also have great concerns over the future and whether or not the militias would calm down, would have no cause for, making trouble. Because in a sense, I mean, the presence of the British forces was a problem and a solution at one and the same time. I think there is a facet of this existence that was neglected, really. That is the good work done in social public works and in training the new forces, in training the new administration, etc. And in one sense also guarding Iraqi borders. These are good things, and unfortunately we are not accustomed to give credit to our adversaries. I'm talking about the Basra society.
Okay, then one final comment from John Wilkes on the phone before we go to the break. We're just talking there about the borders, actually, and I think that's possibly a key area. When you talk about handing over Basra, what about the borders? They are still under, as I understand it, US control. Isn't it that handover which is perhaps more crucial in the future?
Well, we've said to the Iraqis, we've agreed with the Iraqi government as well as the local authorities and the coalition that British forces will still play a role in border patrolling and in protecting the supply routes from Kuwait, in addition to the training and equipping of the Iraqi forces and providing a reserve capacity. And it's certainly true that building Iraqi capacity to monitor and control the border areas remains a key task, and we shall continue to play a role in that. I'd like to say one other thing, and that is it was made clear today during the handover ceremonies that there is a lot of political discussion going on among the various political forces in Basra, and that includes the Sadrists who've stayed outside of the local electoral process and who are now considering whether to join it, about how to take the political situation in Basra forward. And there's no doubt that the redeployment of British troops has been a factor that's encouraging that move towards reconciliation. Now, if that process results in an agreement or more agreement between the Iraqi political forces, that then gives the opportunity to really get the economy going. And Britain has said that we're ready to help with expertise to contribute to getting investment into Basra and to getting small and medium companies up and going and providing employment, which of course will feed back into security. So there was an important economic message from today's ceremonies.
John Wilkes, regional spokesman for the British government in Basra, thank you for those comments. Our other two guests, thank you for joining us. Stay with us. We're going to go to a little break now. When we come back, though, we'll take a close look at the inevitable power struggle among rival Iraqi factions over Basra. Do stay with us.